Welcome. Let's try to solve another Leetcode problem. 678 valid parenthesis string. So for this problem, we are giving three different kind of characters. It is open parenthesis, closing parenthesis, and star. So the meaning of the star is that the star can become anyone. It can become open or closed, or it can become an empty string. Yeah, we just want to check if we can get a valid parentheses, I mean with open and closing parentheses. Yeah. So this is open and closing, it is true. This is open and closing, so the star can be an empty string. So this is also true for this one, because the star can become open parentheses, so to open and to closing. So this is also true. Yeah. So what about other cases? So what about if we are given two closing parentheses and two opening parentheses? Definitely this is a false. Yeah. So even though we give our star, it doesn't matter. It is a false, right? Yeah. Even we are giving some stars, it is false because here we already have some closing parentheses. Yeah. So actually this is a really difficult problem, but it is a good problem. It depends on what kind of algorithm we use. If we are going to use a greedy idea, definitely this is difficult. Yeah. So the greedy idea is that because of this star, we cannot calculate it directly, but we're going to use a minimum and maximum opening parentheses. We're going to check the minimum opening and maximum opening parentheses. So if we are finding an opening parentheses, this is okay. So the minimum, so this is going to be the minimum, and this is going to be the maximum. Yeah. So the minimum gonna plus 1. And the maximum gonna plus 1 because this is open, okay? But what happens if this is a closing parenthesis? So the minimum definitely gonna minus 1 and maximum gonna minus 1. Yeah. So what happens if this is a star? Yeah. So the strange things happens here. So we're gonna control it. So if this is a star, definitely I want to let the minimum minus 1, okay? And I also want to let the maximum plus 1. Yeah. So for maximum plus 1, it is okay. It must be a positive number. If before it is a positive number plus 1, it might be a positive number. But for the minimum, what about previously? It is a 0. So 0 minus 1 is going to be a negative number. But that is not possible because we are checking the minimum and maximum. They must be valid. Yeah. But the minimum be a minus 1 is not valid. So we're gonna choose a 0. Yeah. So now the range may become 0 to 3 or 0 to 2. Yeah, this is the range. So finally, if the minimum and maximum value is like from 0 to 3, yeah, but we want to check the minimum value. If the minimum value is 0, definitely this is true. Yeah, but what about the maximum value? The maximum value, because there's a minus 1 and minus 1 calculation, so the maximum value can become negative values. So if the maximum value is less than 0, so definitely it means it is not possible. So we're gonna return a false. So otherwise, if the minimum value gonna equal to 0, so we're gonna return a true. Yeah. So this is the whole idea of how to solve the problem. Yeah. So now let's just start coding. Yeah. So we're gonna prepare open minimum and opening parentheses with maximum. So I'm gonna set it as 0 and 0. Now I'm going to check the character one by one. So if this character equal to the opening parentheses, yeah. So this means I'm gonna update the opening minimum and opening maximum. Yeah. So this means the opening minimum gonna plus 1 and opening maximum gonna plus 1. Yeah. So ls c equal to the closing parentheses. So what happens for that is we're gonna update yeah, the opening minimum gonna minus 1 and the opening maximum gonna minus 1. Yeah. So what happens if it is a star? So let's just copy and paste. So for the minimum, it's gonna be minus 1, and for the maximum, it's gonna plus 1. Yeah. But as I said before, we need to check the opening max. If this is less than 0, then definitely we're gonna return a false immediately. Otherwise, we're gonna check the opening minimum. So if the opening minimum equal to 0, we're gonna return a true. Yeah, but here we didn't consider that the opening minimum value can become a negative value, but we don't need to do that. We need to control it at least be 0. So we're gonna check the maximum 0 with this value. And similarly for here, we need to check the opening minimum, because opening minimum and opening maximum are the opening possible values. It can never become negative values. Yeah. So for the opening minimum, we're gonna control it at least to be 0. But for the opening maximum, we will not control that, because we want to check if it can become a negative value, because if we can find that, we're gonna return false. Yeah, so this is the difficult part about it. For the opening maximum, we're gonna control it. From here, we're gonna check if it is less than 0, we're gonna return false. But for the opening minimum, definitely we want to control it at least to be 0, because we are checking all the possible cases. It is not by one case or two cases, it is all the possible cases. That is why we're gonna choose the opening minimum always to be true, at least 0. Yeah. Otherwise, if we are not going to choose 0, maybe a negative 1, definitely it is already be false, and it is not valid for the algorithm actually. Yeah. So for example, maybe let's just use this example, use the third example. Yeah, we can see here this is open plus a 1, this is a star, it can plus 1. Yeah, so this means the opening parenthesis can become 2. Yeah, and now the opening parenthesis plus another 1, it becomes 2. So what about the closing? So if we are finding a closing, so the minimum and maximum are gonna -1 and -1, and the opening minimum are gonna equal to 0. Yeah. So what happens if the opening parenthesis with a star and closing and closing? So this is a true or false? Definitely this is a true, right? Because this star can become an open parenthesis. So let's just check if this star is open parenthesis. So the minimum open and maximum yeah, so the yeah, so for this one yeah, how to say so if this is an opening parenthesis, yeah, let's just make this one opening parenthesis. So for the opening minimum and maximum, it's gonna be 2. Yeah. Now we are finding this star. So what is gonna happen for actually for this star? It means for the opening parenthesis, for the minimum value, it can -1. It can become 1. Yeah. But what about the maximum value? So the maximum value can +1. So it becomes 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. That is okay. So the minimum and maximum is 1, and the maximum is 3. Now we are finding this closing parenthesis, so it becomes 0 to 2, right? Now we are finding another closing parenthesis. Can this become negative value? No, we will not set it negative, so we will set it as 0. Now, what about the closing parenthesis? It becomes 1. Yeah. So for the closing parenthesis, it is positive, it doesn't matter. But for the opening parenthesis, it has already become 0. This means it is possible, because the minimum and maximum value is between 0 to 1. Definitely it is possible, so we're gonna return a true for this case. Yeah, but this minimum can never become a negative value, because we will control that. We will never let it become a negative value. If it becomes a negative value, how can we compare this opening minimum? Because we're gonna control the opening minimum to be 0. So this is why we're gonna choose the maximum to be 0. Now let me just run it and submit it to check if that works. Yeah, as you can see, it's pretty fast, and the time and space complexity, the time complexity is O(n), n is 100, and the space complexity is O(1). Yeah, because this is gonna be the best solution for the problem. Thank you for watching. See you next time.